So we're starting Be'ez Hashem Siman Nun Zayin haGuela, and this is going to be about the tefillin, the Lubavitch tefillin campaign. And before, the rebbe talked about the Indian of the Bali Tshuva that allegedly sprung out of the 6-day war, but now he's going to speak about specifically the mitzvah of tefillin. V'hinei lo shamanu oimrim shahayu anashim shenishmeru parshu me'achilas nevelos atrefus. We don't hear that people stopped eating treif because of the victory of the Zionists. U'mechil Shabbos b'farhesia, people stopped, violating Shabbos. V'chadoyma oy she'astu tikunim b'toiva b'chinuch b'neihem. We don't find that the Zionists all of a sudden started sending their kids from schools shemischanchim ad heinu l'kfira rachmana litzlan, that until now they go to schools of kfira. They're still doing everything they're doing before. Rak achas shamanu. The only thing we hear is mimalas tshuvasam, about the tshuva they did, is shehinichu tefillin, that they put on tefillin. Upela mazeh shenis achzu b'mitzvahs tefillin davka. He says, why do they pick tefillin of all mitzvahs to adopt? Amnam kvar matzinu dugmasta b'Yerushalmi, but we find that the Yerushalmi says already something similar. Brachas perek beis halacha gimel. Tefillin, my I think it's supposed to be my time mentes. My time loy hechziku bohen. Why is tefillin not a chazaka? Meaning, when you have a chazaka, you have a person who's trustworthy for the sake of eating his food, making sure that that whatever he serves you is kosher food, or giving him money to guard. So tefillin, if someone keeps tefillin, why isn't that considered a chazaka? Why don't people get a reliability assumption because they wear tefillin? So the Gemara answers, because of the tricksters that put on tefillin just to fool people. The uvda hava b'chad gavra. There was a story about a certain man, the hava toin mamoina, that he was carrying money, but aruvasa the Shabbos on erev Shabbos. And he needed someone to deposit the money with over Shabbos. So Ashka Chad Gabra Mitzali Utfilav Bereshe. He found a certain man who was davening and he had tefillin on his head. Omar Leisli Lifkoid Mamoini El Hadain. He said, I'm not going to give my money except to this guy because they're not your mitzvahs, because he keeps mitzvahs. Avkidei Nigabe, and he gave the money to him. Lafuke Shabbos Kafar Bey, and after Shabbos he denied it and he didn't get his money back. So Omar loy lach heimnis, I didn't believe you, el lishma de kudsha, but I believe the holy name dahava al reishach, that was on your head, ayin sham. So therefore they declared that tefillin is not a reliable thing. Ve'atoisvis b'masech Shabbos ve'arash b'hilchas tefillin perek chav zayin mefarshim ar Yerushalmi. They explain that the Yerushalmi means b'mipnei ma loy hechziku ha'olam ne'emanus. Like I said, they explain it means, why didn't the world? Why doesn't the world trust the person? The people who wear tefillin all day long are going to be kosher and believable beineihem. Really, it should have been that way. Misha Shem Hashem Nikra Olav Tamid. Someone who has the name of Hashem on him all the time. Manichim tefillin. Roy li yoisi rasay al panav. It's someone like that should have yiras Hashem on his face. Tamid v'lo yechton. He shouldn't be sinning. The answer is because of this, the tricksters shehem rashaim umanichim tefillin l'ramois bohen ha'olam. They put on tefillin in order to fool people. Umarim matzmam kiksherim, and they show themselves as if they're kosher, and that's why you shouldn't trust them. Ad kan l'shoyna harash zal. That's what the Rosh says. Al kapanim mevur dechvar mikadmas dana. So what do we see from this? That in the past already, hurgulu or Rishaim l'ramois es abrias b'mitzvahs tefillin. That Rishaim fooled people by wearing tefillin. So he's saying parallel to today. But today, people don't fool people by wearing tefillin. Everybody knows that the secular Jew puts on tefillin once, it doesn't make him frum. But it means to say that the people who put on tefillin on these secular Jews and, let's say, soldiers in the army, and they make pictures of them and the pictures circulate in the world, that fools people into thinking, oh, Zionism is a Jewish thing, Zionism is a frum thing. let's all become Zionists.
And you also said about it being on an impure body?
Oh, so that's going to be later. We're going to speak about that, yeah. Okay. V'tzarech hesber lama bachru davka b'mitzvahs tefillin. So the Rebbe has a question: why did they choose the mitzvah of tefillin to fool people? V'roisi b'mara haponim, the commentary on the Yerushalmi called Mara haponim al Yerushalmi shekasav lefisha nira le'ein kol, because tefillin is visible to the whole world that you're wearing tefillin. Al kein ya'aminu lahem. Therefore, people will wear it and hope that people will believe them because of that. And they make themselves look like good people. So that's the Maran Panim. But the Rebbe says, he says that's not enough of a reason, because there are many mitzvahs that are visible to the whole world that you could fool people with. So why pick mitzvahs tefillin? I mean, before we go on, I just want to show you an interesting thing. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, in Parshas Breshis of Tavshin Chav Ches, which is 67, which is basically only a few weeks after haGuela came out. haGuela was published and printed by the first day of Slichus of 67, which is right before Rosh Hashanah, 1967. So a few weeks later, the Lubavitcher Rebbe came out with a response. And he spoke on Parshas Breshis. They say he spoke for 6 or 7 hours straight, all about the mitzvah tefillin, and his words were printed up.
Yeah, Chaim Miller's book mentioned it.
Yeah?
Turning Judaism Outwards. You know that book?
Oh, yeah, I heard of that book, yeah. So
he mentions his response to the...
So I have it here. It's printed in Likutei Sichos, and we're going to see more of this later, but I just wanted to show you the beginning. He has it in B'derech Shaila Tshuva. I'll share with you because this is upside down. So he says, because I received many questions, v'tainis, arguments against me, relevant to this campaign of tefillin. He says these tainis could cause a weakness. The people who are doing this campaign. Even though usually I don't go into debates, I'm going to answer the questions. So Shaila Aleph is Madua Nivchara Mikol Atayag Mitzvahs Tefillin Davka. Why was mitzvahs tefillin chosen as the one to make the campaign? So it's sort of the same as the Rebbe's Kasha, but the other way around. And one thing you have to know is that the tefillin campaign didn't start after the 6-day war. It started before. It started actually in Iyar, Tavshin Chav Zayin, which is the war was in the end of Iyar, beginning of Sivan, and the tefillin campaign started right before. So the Satmar Rebbe is asking from one point of view. He's saying, look, they used tefillin to show people that they're Bali Tshuva because of the war. Why did they pick that to fool people? Why did they pick? And first, he's asking on the old days, really, in the time of Chazal, people who wanted to fool people wore tefillin, and today also, why? He's saying, why do they use tefillin to fool people into thinking that the 6-day war caused Bali Tshuva? And the Satmar Rebbe is going to provide an answer to that question. He's going to say, by the way, because tefillin, like you said before, it's when someone is a balaveris and they have machshavos rois, putting on tefillin could be not a mitzvah, it could be an avera. So Satmar Rebbe is going to say that this way the Satan chapped around two things at once. He got people to be confused and thinking they're Bali Shuva, and also he got the avera of putting on tefillin on people who have machshavos rois. That's going to be the Satmar Rebbe's answer. But it's funny that the Lubavitcher Rebbe is coming on this question from the other side. He's saying, I made this campaign of tefillin. People ask me, why did I pick tefillin from all mitzvahs to make a campaign of? That's his question. So he says, "But chilas ha'is oirus al davar zeh." When I began to raise people's attention to this subject, hidgashti beferish, I stressed explicitly shahatam lis oirus b'miyuchad al dvar mitzvahs hanachas tefillin, that the reason why I picked tefillin is miyusad hu al divrei Razal. Based on the Gemara, Brachas Daf Vav Amud Aleph, v'ra'u kol amei ha'aretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha v'yaru mimeka. The pasuk says that the whole world, all the nations of the world will see the Jewish people, and they'll see the name of Hashem is called upon them, and they'll be afraid of them. So the Gemara says, Elu tefillin sheberosh. This refers to the tefillin on the head. Tefillin on the arm are covered up by your sleeve. You're supposed to cover them up, but tefillin on the head is open, so all the nations of the world will see the tefillin, the name of Hashem, and they'll be afraid. He says the needs of the time, at the time of right before the 6-day war, is Batchilas Azman, the Mivza Tefillin, Haisa b'miyuchad shetipol aleim e masav afachad. He wanted fear to fall on the nations of the world, because the nations were threatening to attack. So Yiras Amei Haaretz Mipnei Bnei Israel. He wanted the fear of the nations because of the Bnei Israel. Shelo Yareu Chas v'Shalom LiYisrael, that they shouldn't cause harm. Therefore, I aroused people to want to do this mitzvah, put it on the let's say the Israelis, the soldiers, whatever. Uka'amar nimo igzeh hidgashti beferish. And I said this openly at that time. Miyad b'tchilas ha'isoros. Uvemela lepela hashayla al davar zeh. He says, I'm amazed that people are even asking the question. They should just go back and listen to my lecture that I said then, or read it up. I guess it was printed up. U'yoyser biur, and explain it more. Kol mitzvah noisaf al ikar anyana. Every mitzvah besides the actual mitzvah, shehit sivoy HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that you're fulfilling the command of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'tzarech l'kaima mitzad kabbalas ol malchus shemayim, v'kedusach birkas ha-mitzvahs, baruch atah Hashem, melech ha'olam, tzivanu, yesh ba gam segula miyuchedes. Every mitzvah has a certain power that it could change in the world. The kasha adam zakuk le'ezeh inyan b'miyuchad. So therefore, when a person needs a certain thing, mechapes hu umishtadel hu b'yoyser b'oysa mitzvah sheyesh ba skula zkukulai. Person picks the mitzvah that has the power that he needs, the skula that he needs to get what he wants. And he goes on. He speaks about the inyan of tzedakah, giving tzedakah in order to get a refuah in your family. So then he says, I'm skipping to this paragraph here, second to last on the page. The same thing applies here. The mikivin shehuzkaku b'miyuchad lifol al amei haaretz sheyiru miYisrael. He wanted to make the nations, the army of Egypt and Nasser and everything, to be afraid of the Jews. L'chein bikashti v'orarti oidapam. He says, I tried again and again, v'oidapam al ishtadlus l'zakos is Israel mitzvahs tefillin, to make people put on tefillin. Ki huftachnu, we were promised, shal yidei kiyum mitzvazu yiyeh v'yaru mimeka, that by doing this mitzvah they'll be afraid of us. And he goes on and says it's not only the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, but even the Yidden in America and every other place in the world should also put on tefillin, because the Kol Yisrael Ravim Zebazeh. So it's just funny that you see the Rebbe saying a reason why he picked mitzvahs tefillin. If the Satmar Rebbe would have heard that reason, I'm sure he would have been even more angry, because it's saying basically, the Israelis won the war because of mitzvahs tefillin, much more than just saying, okay, a few people became Baalei Tshuva. So, very interesting.
But those Baalei Tshuva are not real Baalei Tshuvas.
Yeah, they're not really Baalei Tshuva.
It's like the Sabbatai Tzvi.
Yeah, also in the previous simon he said that even if they become real Baalei Tshuva and they keep Kol Torah Kula, it's like Shabbos Tzvi Baalei Tshuva. That's what he says there. And I commented last time what we learned, you weren't here then, but I commented that during the years after 67, there were a lot of Baalei Tshuva, but they weren't because of the war. People came to Eretz Yisrael just to find out more about Yiddishkeit, right? They just came. They came to visit the Koisel and whatever, and they went to Esha Torah, and they went to Or Sameach. People became from. Doesn't mean that's not what the Rebbe is talking about. He's talking about people who became from allegedly because of Zionism. That's the kind of Baalei Tshuva that he's saying is false.
There's that famous story of a Catholic priest made somebody from. This Catholic priest, he went to the Kotel, and then someone invited him to Esha Torah, but he didn't tell them that he's not Jewish. But then he became a teacher and a student. This famous story, and he was a teacher. And he went back to Massachusetts. He became a teacher, and he had a Jewish student who did a biography on Maimonides and asked him why you choose Maimonides, and said, "Do you know anything about your tradition?" And he said, "If you ever decide to go to Israel, go to this address; they'll take care of you." And he listened to him.
Interesting. Yeah.
You never heard that? It's a
No.
famous story. And he became fully from, supposedly, I don't know, Zionist from
Not the priest or the
No, the kid, Jewish
kid.
Yeah, or Sameach or something.
All right. Anyway,
So that might be Finkelman's book.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's go on now. So basically, the Rebbe is going to say in this coming paragraph and in the next sermon also that there's another reason why they picked on tefillin, and the reason is because tefillin, for a secular Jew to put on tefillin is actually bad. And you're going to say why now?
Because of the clean body? Or
yeah, because of the clean body. V'nir li al pi ma she'amru b'gemara Masechta Shabbos daf mem tes amud aleph Amar Rebbe Yanai tefillin tzrichin guf naki ke'elisha bal knafayim. So it's good to see this Gemara inside. So I brought Gemara right after the Mishnah on mem tes amud aleph. Amar Rebbe Yanai tefillin tzrichin guf naki. Tefillin require a clean body. Ke'elisha bal knafayim, like Elisha, the master of the wings. So who is that? So the Gemara says, first of all, Mahi, what does it mean to have a clean body? Abai Amar Shelo Yafiach Bahen. Abai says it means not to pass gas while wearing tefillin. Rava Amar Shelo Yishon Bahem. Rava says not to sleep in tefillin. So sleeping itself is not a problem. Rashi says Shelo Yishon Bahem Shema Yafiach, because he might pass gas during sleep, or yira keri, or he might become a bal keri. Avolim yachol yizar shelo yishan. But if you could put on tefillin and be careful not to sleep in them, yeah, bohen kol hagufim nekim. All bodies are clean. Ba'afacha sheyicholim lahamid atzmon. So in other words, Rav is saying, don't worry about passing gas. That's something that most people could be careful of. Just be worried about falling asleep. Don't wear tefillin while you're sleeping. Okay. Why did they call Elisha the owner of the wings? The Roman government made a decree. If someone puts on tefillin, they're going to poke out his brain. And Elisha put it on not only secretly, but he went out in the street wearing tefillin. Ra'ahu kastor echa, the policeman saw him, and he ran after him. And he ran after him. He ran away from him and he ran after him. When the policeman caught up, he took them off, and he put them on, he held them in his hand. What's in your hand? It's the wings of a dove. He opened his hands and it was really the wings of a dove. That's why they called him Elisha, the owner of the wings. Okay? That's that story. Okay, so let's go on now. Ubi Yerushalmi, the parak based the brachas. Yerushalmi says, Tamon Amrinan, it says, there they said, Kol she'enu ke'Elisha bal knafayim lo yilbash tefillin. Anyone who's not like Elisha should not put on tefillin. Uva halachas ketanos la rush. The rush, in the back of Menachos, where the halachas of tefillin are brought in Masechta Menachos. So the rush in the back has a section called halachas ketanos, where he goes through the halacha. Siman Chavches. Pirish lo yishiyeh tzadik ke'Elisha bal knafayim. You don't have to be such a big tzadik to wear tefillin. El sheyachol yizar. You just have to be careful. And the end of the rush is he has to be careful not to do what the Gemara says, which is not to pass gas or not to sleep. Okay? Ulahachi naka Elisha, and the reason why it picks on Elisha is the kivan de ira loy nes, since we know that a nes happened to him, because the tefillin turned into a dove's wings. Mistama haya shoymer mitahara. It must be that Elisha was makpid on the tefillin to make sure that they stay clean, that he stays clean. Ad kan toichin divrei rush. U'kumoy ken kosva toisvis b'Shabbos. Shabbos toisvis says the same thing. Dibra maschil ka Elisha. Kosva beis Yosef. Okay, so far we have the Gemara, we have the two reasons of Abai and Rava, of what Gufnaki means. But Kosva beis Yosef, ba'orchaim simon lameches, b'zel l'shoynoi. Kosva kolboy. Kol boy was a Rishon, and he brings B'Shem Haram, the Ram Mirottenberg, the Rebbe of the Rosh, V'ala Bachrim Sheshoalta, the question that was asked to the Maram Mirottenberg. Bachrim, Asher Mahararim Afilu B'Shas Kriyishma, people who have a problem with bad thoughts, that immoral thoughts, and they're thinking about these thoughts even during Kriyishma. They can't stop. So, Zok the Maram Mirottenberg, Lo Yanichu Tefillin. These Bachrim should not put on Tefillin. So he's being mechadash here that there's an extra type of gufnaki. Gufnaki doesn't just mean what the Gemara says. It also means thinking machshavas rois. Va'afilu choyli me'ayim. He says, I'll make a kal v'chomer. Even someone who has a stomach illness and he has gas, lots of gas, asher lan yicham, should not put on tefillin. So kol shekain shelo yinhag bohen kalus roish b'taivas nashim. Kol shekain that someone shouldn't put on tefillin and be thinking about the taiva of women. Ad kan l'shaynai. HaKol boy b'shem Aram Mirottenberg Zal. This is what the Kol boy says. Because of a Beis Yosef, so the Beis Yosef comments on that. The Sfira Leila Aram Devoid Shehem Alav, that when tefillin are on you, Tzarech Shelo Yaharher. You're not supposed to think about taiva of women. V'yimeinu Yachol Lahamid Atzmoi, and if you can't stop thinking about it, Milahara B'Shah Shehen Alav Lo Yaniach. You shouldn't put on tefillin. Okay. Interesting to see, by the way, the Beis Yosef has a kasha here that the Rebbe doesn't quote, but the Beis Yosef draws it over here. Here. And this is page 2 of the Beis Yosef. Let's put this underneath. And this is this. So take a look in the lower left corner here. This is similar to Ches in Or Chaim Beis Yosef. He says, because of Oid HaKol Ba B'Shem Aram Ba'al Bakrim Sheshoalta. Okay, this part he quoted. Here, look at the second line from the bottom. The Tomhani, he says, I have a kasha on the Maram Mirottenberg. Tohatani B'Perek Sheni the Sukkah. The Mishnah says, the Gemara says in Sukkah, in second parak of Sukkah, Rav Chav Vav on the base. Rabbi Yossi Omer Hayiladim La'olam Choltzim. So the Gemara asks over there, what about going to sleep, taking a nap during the day with tefillin? Taking a nap, sleeping at night is not allowed with tefillin, but sleeping during the day, say you wear tefillin all day and you want to take a little nap. Can you wear tefillin during your nap? So Rabbi Nassan says, yes, you could. Rabbi Yossi says, no, it depends who you are. If you're a young man, a person who has like a lot of taiva, so then Hayiladim La'olam Choltzim. You should always take off your tefillin before the nap. Because it's often that they have tuma. Okay, Pirush Rashi, sheregilim betuma, kasal kadaitach shema yiru keri, that they might have keri during their nap. Shahirhur matzi bohem, because these young people have a lot of hirhurim. Umatama Talmuda, and the Gemara asks, Lema kasav Rabbi Yossi bal keri aser la'aniach tefillin. Let's say that we see from here that Rabbi Yossi holds a Balkari, he's not allowed to put on tefillin. So Amr Abaye answers, Ki yaladim biyaladim unashoseim imahem. No, it's talking about that these are married young men. And they have wives, and their wives are sleeping with them. Askinan, and that's the case. So he says, Shema yavayu lidei hergel davar, because the problem is that they might do tashmish amita with their wives during the time that they're taking a nap. So Harei Behedya. So the Beis Yosef says, you see from here, in the Gemara's teretz, the Mishum Hirhur Loi Mistar. The only problem is with the wife, right? But if they're just a bacher sleeping alone, and they have Hirhurim and they have Keri sometimes, there's no problem. So how can the Maram Mirottenberg say that you can't put on tefillin if you have Hirhurim? Here you have a Beferish Gemara that you could. The Beis Yosef's kasha. Mishum hachi. V'ef shaloimar. The third line. He's answering the kasha now. The Ram's mefarish. The Ram explains the kasaf adaita uneher sheregilim betuma hainu shehen bali kriyim. The regilim betuma doesn't mean that during this nap they're going to actually have keri. It means that they were already a bal keri before. Ubal keri aster lo aniach tefillin. There's a doicha because the Gemara is mashma, but the whole problem is taking a nap. wearing tefillin is not the issue. But the Beis Yosef is saying, no, the issue is putting on tefillin if you're already a Balkari. And that, the Gemara says, really a Balkari does have to put on tefillin. When they were on you, at the time that you're wearing them, tzarech shelo yahara. Anyway, that's the Beis Yosef's vort over there. I was thinking you could also say, it's not so pashut that, what's Hirhurim Roim? Hirhurim Roim means thinking about nashim that you're not allowed to be with. But thinking about your own wife, maybe that's not Hirhurim Roim. So maybe after the Gemara's teretz, the Gemara answers that we're talking about Bachrim that are married. So according to that, maybe the whole kasha is not a kasha, because the Maram was talking about Bachrim who are not married. And this Gemara is only being matir in the case of Bachrim who are married. Anyway, I don't know. So let's see weiter in the haGuela, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the bottom. Uve Sefer Orchos Chaim Kosev. This is the Beis Yosef speaking now. He quotes the Sefer Orchos Chaim, another Rishon. Kosev al Hada Aram v'chein mashma b'Yerushalmi. He says this is also implied from the Yerushalmi, that you're not allowed to have bad thoughts during tefillin. Shemafarish guf nakim machshav ra ad kan l'shoina. By the way, where's this Yerushalmi? So, also brought the Yerushalmi here. Perek haYakoyre. That's this and this. Okay, so the Yerushalmi says, Rabbi Yanai, same as the Bavli. Tefillin tzrichim guf nakim mipnei ma lo yachziku bohem nei aramayim. Okay, this is the story that he brought before about the person who tricked the guy and took his money. In the page. Here's the story. Rabbi Yanai, the same Rabbi Yanai who said tzrichim guf nakim, haya loivshan acher chol yoy gimel yamim. After Rabbi Yanai was sick for 3 days, after he was sick, he waited 3 days and then he put them on. Because the sickness atones for sin. So, and ma'atam, where's the source for that? Hasolech l'chol avoynaichi, haroife l'chol tachluaichi. Pasuk in Tehillim says, Hashem forgives all your sins and He heals all your illnesses. So the juxtaposition implies that when you have an illness, Hashem forgives your sins. So this is what I think the Orchos Chaim means. He means, from this Yerushalmi, you see that when a person has sins and he gets sick, the sickness expiates the sins. So Rabbi Yanai didn't put on tefillin except at that time. The rest of the time, maybe he didn't put on tefillin at all because he was afraid of his sins. That's what it sounds like. Anyway, so V'li nira, the Beis Yosef says, I think the ein lepater min mitzvahs tefillin mipnei kach. You shouldn't exempt these bachrim from tefillin. Ela yesh lachufam bidvarim. Rather, you should teach them and give them a shir, talk to them. V'limshoch libam liyiras shamayim, and teach them to have yiras shamayim. Kadei sheyasichu libam midivrei havai. They should take their minds off these thoughts of emptiness. Hamazikim leguful nefesh. They are harmful to the body and the soul. V'yafanu libam lekabel aleim ol malchus shamayim. They should turn their hearts and try to accept malchus shamayim. Say Kriya Shema and not have any hirhurim. Ad kan lashon Beis Yosef. According to the Vracha, the Beis Yosef says, "V'hamchaber." The Beis Yosef, when he wrote the Shulchan Aruch, b'siman lamed ches, sif dalad kasav haminiach tefillin tzarich lizayir mehirhur taivas isha. He brings this down the halacha that during the time that you're wearing tefillin, you have to not think about taivas isha. V'tziyin al zeh harama azal, and the Ramah in his comment on this mechaber, the Ramah says, if you can't go without thoughts for those time, that short amount of time, mutav shaloi lanicham. It's better not to put it on. And the source is kol boy v'orchos chaim ad kan l'shona. So is this an argument? Is the Ramah saying different from the mechaber? The mechaber is saying just stop your thinking, stop your thoughts during tefillin. The Ramah says if you can't stop, then don't wear tefillin. Is it an argument? So the Rebbe says no, could be not, could be they're agreeing. Even though he says you don't pater them mitzvahs tefillin miknekach, he says he's not saying put them on while you're thinking the thoughts. He says no, teach them with words. Teach them to have yirah shamayim. They should take their minds off the bad thoughts. And then they should think about being Makabal, the kingdom of Hashem. So that's all the Beis Yosef is talking about, Erlich Yidden, people who want to keep the mitzvahs, and they just have a problem, so you give them some muster, shmooze, whatever, teach them not to do it. But, you could teach these people Yirah Shamayim. So there, you have to read like this. People who are not this type of people, that you can't, people who you can't teach this Yirah Shamayim, then even there the Beis Yosef will agree that they shouldn't put on tefillin. The Teres Zav, the Lavush, in his commentary on this siman, says the if you don't know the meaning of the tefillin, then a tefillin b'moichoy b'izroyoy ka'avanim. The tefillin on his head and on his arm are like stones. Chas v'shalom. So we'll get back to that in Mir Hashem later, but that's not the Rebbe's main point here. The Rebbe's main point is from the words of the Beis Yosef and the Ramah, that someone who can't stop thinking machshavas rois shouldn't be putting on tefillin. Ber Ma'im Chaim, Parsha Shoftim Kosav, Ber Ma'im Chaim writes, if you don't think about the Parshias that are in your tefillin, it's as if they're on the wall or on the roof. They're not on your body. Okay, so we'll get back to that later. But the main point of the Rebbe is the thing about the machshavas rois. So I just want to show you something. Back to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. You still have the Lubavitcher Rebbe pages? No, I think I took them back. No, I didn't. You have them. So turn to the second page, the bottom, second column at the bottom. Shaila Gimel. He says, the third question that I received about my tefillin campaign. You should not try to convince secular Jews.
Question from the Satmar rebbe?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't say who asked the question, but obviously these questions got back. They say this. Of course, the Lubavitcher Rebbe read the Sefer haGuela.
He did, really?
Well, it was published a few weeks before.
Vil Moshe also he read?
I'm sure he did, yeah. I mean, I just heard recently that on the Rosh Hashanah that year, it was published on the first day of Slichas, so like a few days before Rosh Hashanah. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe, it says that he couldn't get the shofar blasts out of his mouth because of it. He had trouble blowing shofar because he was so upset about the Sefer haGuela.
Cognitive dissonance?
Yeah, so Shaila Gimel. So this is the third question. It's not allowed to convince secular Jews lahaniach tefillin. Why? Given shetefillin tzrichim guf naki. Turn the page. V'yizar mirihurim. You have to stop having thoughts. Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim Siman Lamed Ches. V'amru Razal. And the Chazal say Bava Basra Kuf Samach Dalad. Shalosh averis ein adam nitzol mehem b'chol yoyim. The Satmar Rebbe is going to quote this in the next siman, so that's where he got this from too. That it says there are three averis that a person cannot be saved from every day. Even a frum Jew is not saved from these three averis. And hiruri aver. One of those averis is machshavas rois, thoughts. The other ones are, I think, gezel, something else. So this is one of the three averis. Even frum Jews do. So kol shekain, secular Jews are going to be doing it, right? So the Lubavitcher Rebbe answers, Mana, ein shum yisoid boimar v'lachshoish asher elu arechokim la'es ata. He says these people who are right now are far from mikim Torah mitzvahs. They're at this point in their life. U'cheshematzim lahem u'mavakshi moistam manichim tefillin. And when you come to them and you offer them to put on tefillin and they agree to do it, He says it's very unlikely that they're going to have machshavas rois. You think just at that moment they're going to have these bad thoughts? They're coming to do a mitzvah for the first time in their life, right? He says they're not going to think the thoughts then. He says, even if it would be possible to have a chashash that would happen, he says the Magen Avraham says the Admor Azakin Heviyoi. The Admor Azakin is the Baal Tanya, which is the Shulchan Aruch Rav, L'fsak Halacha. He says the only issue is when you know for sure it's only when you know you're not going to be able to hold yourself back. But if you're not sure, you might be able to hold yourself back, you might not, then lo yimna mitzvahs tefillin. You shouldn't refrain from putting on tefillin. So let's say it's a suffix that these people that you're putting on the tefillin on are going to be mahar. But the Lubavitchers used to have these trucks, right? They drove around. Before they got mitzvah tanks, they drove with these U-Haul trucks, whatever they rented, right? And they drove and they parked it and they put on tefillin inside the truck. So these people that they hopped from the street, these people, even if it's a suffix that they're going to be mahar, it's still mutter. All right, next. Amru Chazal asher miteva ha'adam shedavar chadash hakol ratzim likrasoi. He finds a source for this. Interesting. The Baal Rebbe was a big bucky. He knew everything. So he said, there's a Sifri V'Eschana, and it says, when there's a new thing, people run to see the new thing. People like new things. Yesh, it says in Koheles, right? It says, Yesh davar sheyoymar ve'ezeh chadashu. So anyway, he says, Puk chazi mai amadabar. Go see what people do. Shemizeh move on. Shekesheroya adam chidesh. When someone sees something new, b'frat kesheve'atzmoi oisa davar. When he's doing something new for the first time, asher chideshu etzloi, that's new for him. Bo'es ma'isa al kaponim kol machshavtoi hu be'achidesh. At the time he's doing it, at least he's thinking only about that thing. It's like people go to an amusement park or something. They're thinking about what they're doing there. They're not thinking about some taivas that they have. So these people who aren't used to mitzvahs tefillin, it's a new thing for them. Pashahu asher machshavtom be'es ma'isa hi al devar hatefillin. When they're putting on tefillin, they're thinking only about the tefillin. If anything, it's the people who put on tefillin every day and daven every day and say the same words again and again. They're more likely to have machshavas rois because they're used to it. So it's for them it's boring and their mind's going to wander. That's a well-known thing. Everybody's trying to keep their mind on davening and machavan and everything. But someone who never davened before, never put on tefillin, what's he going to be thinking about? Only the tefillin. That's the Lubavitcher's Rebbe's answer. And then he says a second answer, and the Satmar Rebbe is going to deal with the next simon, but I'll just read it now. He says, Kostava Smag. The Smag, who was a Rishon in the 1200s, he says, Mitzvah Sasei Gimel. He says, Ein lecha rasha shelo yehei roi letefillin. There's no rasha in the world who should not put on tefillin. Kal v'chomer mi Sefer Torah shehu mekudash yoser. He says that Sefer Torah has more holiness than tefillin, and yet everyone holds a Sefer Torah. We don't withhold the holding of a Sefer Torah from someone just because they're a rasha. Because during davening, anybody could be an Erech Yid. Out in the street, they'll do whatever they want. But when they come to shul, let's say they come on Simchas Torah, you want to give them a chance to hold a Sefer Torah, anybody could do that. V'yein lefarish. By the way, there's an amazing story I once heard about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. There was a man who went off the derech because he was angry. They didn't let him hold the Sefer Torah on Simchas Torah. That was one of the things that happened. I mean, of course, he must have had other reasons too. But one time, after many, many years of being not from, someone convinced him to come to Lubavitch for Simchas Torah. And in the Rebbe for Simchas Torah, the Rebbe dances with the Torah. Nobody else. So
the Lubavitch also?
Yeah, the Lubavitch also. So the Lubavitch Rebbe was dancing with the Sefer Torah, and everyone was in a circle around him. All of a sudden, in the middle of the circle, the Lubavitch Rebbe came up to this guy and handed him the Sefer Torah out of all the people there, and gave him a chance to dance with it.
So somebody told him about him?
It doesn't sound like it. I don't know. I don't know. That's the story that they say. And the guy became frum again after that, I guess. I don't know. But the point is that everybody could hold a Sefer Torah. Okay, so he says tefillin is for sure like that. So this second part is really a response to the Satmar Rebbe's next siman, so we'll read it afterwards, but we'll read it now also. You shouldn't say that the smag is only talking about not a real Rasha who's like completely not religious, but someone who's religious but he just doesn't keep certain things. Don't think that. He says, Ein lecha Rasha, there is no Rasha in the world who's not right for tefillin. It's also explicit later on in the words of the smag. Kein brura kavanasai meharaya shemevi kal v'chomer mi sefer Torah. He brings a kal v'chomer from a sefer Torah. Shahakol oichsim ba. Everybody holds it. V'ha'umna mimatze mish yestor. Is there anybody who will forbid l'mishahu mibnei Yisrael from any Jew haroitz b'zeh lechois b'sefer Torah? Is there any Jew? Could I imagine? He's saying on the Satmar Rebbe. He's speaking to him. He's saying, would Jews stop somebody from holding a sefer Torah if they wanted to? Of course he wouldn't, right? So just like he wouldn't do that, you shouldn't stop them from putting on tefillin. Okay, so we'll stop here this siman.